Amores, welcome back to my channel. It is your girl Christina, aka tu vecina favorita que maquilla. And if you are new here, bienvenidos. So if you don't already know, I am a makeup artist, and so my channel is primarily a makeup and beauty type of channel. So most of my videos are tutorials or things about makeup, but every now and then I do something a little different, or I do something related to being Dominican, or stuff like that. So by the way, this look, if you like it, I did do a tutorial on this look. It is a Valentine's Day inspired look, so you can check out my last video, which is the tutorial for this look. So today's topic, it's not something I really like to dwell on. When I make videos related to being Dominican and stuff like that, I like to share, like the more fun, positive stuff about us. For example, I did a video about like Dominican tips for hair, skin, and nails. I also just recently did a get ready with me style video where I was like jamming to some of my like favorite bachata songs, things like that. But this topic is something that I just keep seeing over and over again. And I wasn't even going to make a video on this. This is kind of like a last minute decision. But just a few days ago, I watched this video from this YouTuber on here. He has a pretty big following. I think he got like a couple thousand followers. I don't know. But he makes videos primarily about, issues within the Black community, and not just like Black people here in the US, but Black people throughout the African diaspora. So, here, the Caribbean, wherever. And, I subbed to his channel because he actually has a lot of, educational and interesting videos, some of which I have enjoyed. But he just recently put out a video earlier this week, and I think the title of it is I'm Not Black, I'm Dominican. And of course, in the video, he included clips of the most ignorant ones. There was like one dude in there, I'm assuming he was Dominican himself. He was like, Dominicans need to stop acting Black. Y'all, you're Dominican, act Spanish. I was like, the hell is acting Spanish? Like, I know what he meant. I was like, okay. I know the term Spanish has pretty much become synonymous with being Latino or being Hispanic, but it's like, okay, Spanish is not the correct term. We are not directly from Spain. Sure, we are descendants of Spaniards because of colonization, stuff like that, but we ain't Spanish. But anyway, it just portrayed us in such a negative light. And of course, the comments was filled with people bashing Dominicans. And of course, I had to put my little 2 cents in there too. But I'm just so tired of seeing Dominicans, and mainly just us, pretty much having become like the poster child for the self-hating Black Latinos, or whatever you want to call it. Like, I'm just tired of seeing it. And first and foremost, the first issue in all of this is, in which a couple people in the video did mention in the comments, is that people are confusing or mixing up race with ethnicity and nationality. Okay, like Hispanic or Latino is not a race. It is not a race. Dominican is not a race. Dominican is a nationality. Okay, you can be Hispanic and Dominican and be Black. You can be Hispanic and Dominican and be, believe it or not, white. There are white Dominicans. If you want to just identify as mixed race, that's fine too. At the end of the day, Dominicans are as a whole mulatto. We are. I know a lot of people don't like using the term mulatto because it refers back to being a mule, basically meaning we're like a mixed breed. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we are. We're a mix of white and Black, European and African, with a little bit of Taino. So if you go to DR, like, although the majority of the population is mixed race, there are areas in which the population is more Black. For example, like the coastal areas, or like, the regions in which most of the African slaves were taken, the people in those areas are more Black. And then if you move more inland, you'll find areas where the population is very white. So those are areas in which, Europeans settled. There wasn't as much mixing with like the African slaves. And you'll even find that these people from these regions, including like the Cibao region, which is where my family's from, they have a little more Taino blood in them. Because when the Spanish took over, and basically the Taino people were being exterminated, basically. And they were wiped out, or they were dying because they, were getting sick from all the European diseases. Some of the Tainos fled into the mountains, so that's why you'll find people from those areas have more Taino blood. So again, we're just like a mix of these things. Again, some are more Black, some are more white. So the second thing is, and I mentioned this in my comments, and I also mentioned this in my ancestry DNA results video as well. So when you ask a Dominican person here in the US, are you black? And they say, no, I'm not black, I'm Dominican. That usually means, no, I'm not African American. Because in this country, in the US, the term black has pretty much become synonymous for African American. Of course, that doesn't mean that everyone that says black means African American. That's not at all what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, most people, that's how they use that word. In my experience as a darker skinned Dominican, when I have been asked, are you black, including by other African Americans, it was never a question of my race. It's always been a question of my ethnicity, basically trying to figure out, am I African American? Because at the end of the day, African American is also within ethnicity. It's a culture. Black is their race, yes, but their culture is African American because they are black people that are here in the United States. But like I said, black has become a term that also is usually synonymous with them. And that is what it is. And someone, commented, oh, that's just a cop-out. It's just another way for Dominicans to kind of deny or stray away from their blackness. I honestly don't see it that way. Not to say that that can't be the case for some Dominicans, but I don't necessarily think that's the reason. For one, if you know Hispanic people are very prideful. We are very prideful of our own, individual, unique cultures. And it's not even just, with African Americans, even among us Latinos, if I'm Dominican, don't be confusing me for a Puerto Rican. Not that I have anything against Puerto Ricans. I have nothing against my Boricua cousins. Or if you're Salvadorian, you don't want to be confused for a Mexican. If you're Peruvian, you don't want to be confused for a Bolivian. So, it's the same thing with African Americans. I'm Dominican. I'm very proud of my culture. I don't necessarily want to be mistaken for an African American. And again, it's not because I have anything against African Americans. It's just because I'm very prideful of my culture and I want to be known as such. I also did say, that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure for a lot of Dominicans, that is why they say I'm not black. But she said, but I don't think it's only that. I think it's also a social class thing because they also don't want to be associated with the negative stereotypes that comes with being African American, which is, I believe, a valid point. I do believe that, some Dominicans, and let's keep it real, it's not just Dominicans, it's also, I've seen this with black people from other cultures. They don't want to be associated with the stereotypes that comes with being an African American, and for that reason, they'll be quick to tell you, I'm not African American or I'm not black, I'm this, which is unfortunate. And, someone also said, black Americans they're always looked down on by black people of other cultures, or people black people from other cultures would say, oh, black Americans have no culture. And side note, has nothing to do with Dominicans, but when I hear people say that, because I've heard this myself before from other people, and I'm like, how can you say that black Americans have no culture? Have you heard jazz, blues, the original rock and roll? Have you heard of hip hop, R&B, rap? Have you had soul food? Have you danced to all the millions of dances made by black people? Have you heard of black poets? Have you seen black art, black American art? So to that, I'm like, bruh, that's a stupid statement. I don't know why people even say that. But anywho, yeah, so it's at the same time, let me just say, I am not at all ignorant to the fact that there are Dominicans out here that give us that bad name, and they will fight you and say things like, oh, the reason we have dark skin is because of, the Tainos. Okay, which I'm like, the reason we black and a lot of us got dark skin is because of the Africans. Okay, come on, let's keep it real. The average Dominican only has between 5 to 10% Native American blood. In my DNA results, mine came back 8%. My mom actually has 10%, which is high compared to most Dominicans. But yeah, come on, y'all. Our dark skin is from that's from the African state. It's not necessarily from the Tainos. They could have a little bit of influence in there as far as the skin color, but it's from the black people. And so I try to be knowledgeable about things, and I like to look up I like to not only know things, but I try to understand the reason as to why. Why do so many Dominicans identify the way they do, or why do so many refer to Spain as the motherland versus, Africa? Like I made a video about being Afro-Latina, and there were a few Dominicans on there that weren't too happy with me using that term, and I get it, okay, fine. But, one said something like, really, we're European with African admixture, so they switched it around. And like that may be true for some Dominicans, because there are Dominicans that I said are predominantly white, and the majority of their genetic makeup is European. But that's not the whole Dominican population. And so I've tried to kind of look up and just learn more about the history of DR, and of course I think a lot of the identity issues, or how Dominicans identify, it goes back to slavery. And I read a few things, and it even goes back to the type of relationship between the slave and the master. And so if you look at Española, like as a whole, so the French side of the French colony in Española, which is now Haiti, they were primarily like sugar plantations. And then in the Spanish colony, they ended up resorting to more of a cattle ranching society. So the relationship between the slave and the master was not as brutal as it was on the French side. They developed more of a side-by-side almost type of relationship. So okay, how can I explain? So I read something somewhere that said, so basically, because of this type of setup where it wasn't such a huge gap between the slave and the master, the Spanish were basically able to kind of almost brainwash the Africans into thinking, okay, like, you're not really African, you're not African no more, you're not one of us, okay? But I mean, don't get it twisted, you're still a slave, but you're one of us now. So I think that could have even been maybe a tactic to keep them from really revolting. I don't know. But I think that definitely is one of the reasons why a lot of Dominicans like side more with their Spanish or European side versus the African side. And then of course, if you fast forward to, the last century, the era of Trujillo, which everybody knows that man was a hot mess. He hated his black side. And in trying to promote DR to the world, if you look at ads and stuff from that era, it always portrayed Dominican as a country of white people, a very European. And so for a lot of us, that have grandparents that are still alive, or even, in our parents' generation, that was kind of like the mindset that the whiter, the better. And so I think that also had a lot to do with why so many Dominicans to this day still do try to downplay their African ancestry and try to side more, or say that they're more European or Taino than they are black. I have a huge family. My dad has 12 siblings. My mother has 22 half siblings. And so you can already imagine, like, as is characteristic of the Dominican population as a whole, my family covers the entire array of skin colors. I have family members that are very white, and then family members that are very black. And at least for me, growing up, it was never my experience hearing anyone in my family try to say, oh, we're not black, or I don't know, don't date black people. Like someone said that, their Dominican friend told them they were told not to date black people. I just never experienced like this whole anti-black sentiment that other Dominicans have. That was never an issue for me. I don't think anyone in my family has ever denied that as Dominicans, you're either black or, you have black in you, however you want to word it. That was never an issue. And as many times as I've been to DR, again, I'm not going to deny that there are people over there and over here that they don't want to be called black. Don't call me black. I They're out there. I'm not denying that at all. But I don't believe that to be the majority. I do not believe that the majority of Dominicans deny their blackness. I just don't. I mean, how can you when you're like my skin color or darker? Like, how you gonna deny it, bruh? Like, how? Like, where to do that at? You know? But unfortunately, these Dominicans that are in denial, they're the ones that get plastered everywhere. They're the ones that are continually being like promoted and put on social media, and so then people assume that all of us are like that. And that's not the case. From very little, I was always very aware that as Dominicans, we have Black roots. And I always know that is even what sets us apart from other Hispanics. Because if you watched my video on being Afro-Latina, like I grew up in an area where the majority of the Hispanics here are like from Central America. So we have, you know, a lot of Salvadorians, a lot of Mexicans, and even a lot of like Peruvians and, you know, other South Americans. So there weren't a lot of Dominicans here. So from a very early age, I knew that there was a difference between us, you know? So my Blackness was never, there was just never a question about it, you know? But, and something else that I mentioned in my ancestry video, I think one reason why Dominicans won't just say they're Black is because, well, for one, the one drop rule is not a thing everywhere. I mean, definitely nowhere near like the way it was implemented here. At the end of the day, the majority of us, we are aware and like to recognize all the things that we are mixed with. I, for one, I say that I am a mixed race person. I'm mixed race. However, when it comes to like filling out like a job application or anything where I have to put my race, I just check Black. I mean, that's just what I do. And because I also know that, you know, African is the thing I'm most mixed with. So I know from my DNA results video, I'm 52% African, 40% European, 8% Native American. So I also identify as an Afro-Latina. And that is where I had some people like, they didn't like that I identified as that, because they were like, oh, you're just promoting the one drop rule. Us Dominicans do not adhere to that racist one drop rule, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I get it. And I know that that Afro-Latina is not a term actually used in DR. That is really something that's used here in the US. But I was like, but you know what? As someone who comes from an area where honestly a lot of people didn't know there were dark-skinned or Black Hispanics, I use that because I think it does help to bring more awareness to the fact that we exist. There are Black or dark-skinned Hispanics, and also to show that we are not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of my Black roots. Why would I be? At the end of the day, I said this in my comments, you know, on that video, that Blackness that we have, especially, you know, us as Dominicans, like, that is what gives us, you know, it's a sabor, that flavor, like it's a flow that we have. Like, it's because of that Blackness in us, you know, our curly hair, you know, our, you know, shapely, voluptuous bodies that a lot of us have. Like, where do you think that comes from? I think that's something to be very proud of, you know? So, I don't know, man. I feel like, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to get over this stereotype that we have in front of, you know, Black people or African American people or even other Hispanics. I don't know. You know, it's sad. And like I said, I hate seeing it because I'm like, that's not all of us. Not all of us are like that. Especially, I feel like the younger generations, I feel like we're more woke, so to speak, and like I said, we're aware of what we're mixed with. We know we're Black, you know, we have white, we know we have, you know, but we're not denying anything. We're not denying anything. And I made this video because I just want to shed more of a, I don't know, maybe put more understanding out there, or show that not all Dominicans deny their Blackness. Like, I certainly do not. I know many that do not. Like I said, I've never heard anyone in my family do that. So, okay, I think my rant is over. Alright guys, well, maybe you enjoyed this video, maybe you didn't. I'm sure I'm going to get a few dislikes. I'm sure I'm going to get somebody's gonna argue with me in the comment section or say whatever, still talk stuff about Dominicans. But it is what it is. If you're gonna make a discussion or comment, hopefully we can have like an open discussion where we're not bashing each other. So anyways, guys, if you haven't checked out any of my other videos, check them out. I'm going to leave a link below to my Dominicana de Pura Cepa series if you guys want to check that out. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.